Yeah, I mean, that's excellent. So let's say credit union executives are watching, checking out our interview uh, in recorded time. On the one hand, they may see, and I think would see DaLand as another vendor, quote
Right.
unquote, right? You've painted a picture of, I think, in some way, of how DaLand is different. Can you draw that out a little more clearly for us?
Yeah, we definitely have been in that space in the past of being the vendor, right? So 10 years ago, formed a privately held company, built up a portfolio of credit unions across the country, worked with them as an outsider and a vendor. Although I think those credit unions would say we were always a little different and a little quirky compared to the typical consulting and services firm. And I think one of those clients that would have said that was Nutmeg, and that was why they, came along and said, "Hey, we would like to formalize this partnership a little bit more and invest into taking this message and these philosophies and these solutions deeper into the industry in closer collaboration with the industry, right?" So, factually speaking, we did reinvent ourselves as a CUSO and restructure our products and services to be more focused on long-term strategic partnership with our clients. Like literally walking alongside them and their challenges economically, technologically, strategically, operationally, right? We focus on those four pillars. And we want to be engaged with institutions for long-term strategic partnership, not a technology contract, right? Not a project management agreement, not a platform selection. We want to be a full spectrum, long-term partner, roll up our sleeves, get dirty, deal with the challenges of living in the same house together, all these things. Make the mistakes of putting the toothbrushes too close together once in a while and getting, there's dispute, there's struggle, but there's also success, right? As I think you can point to some of our clients and see. So I think we want to be in the middle of that chaos of the moment right now, because we believe that it's very potent or pregnant with potential for these institutions that want to be serious about it. And I just don't think there's a way to do that as a vendor whose relationship is predicated on a piece of software, right? Because that conversation is always going to be, your software is not working right, or you're not responding to my tickets fast enough, or you're not, I don't feel like you delivered what you said you were going to deliver. We have those conversations with our clients too, as we help them roll out their own solutions, but it's a conversation about what they desire, not what a piece of paper says about a 3-year relationship. And that's a fundamental difference between what I call partner and a vendor. And we always operated with that mindset, even when we were a privately held company. But now, our larger and more capable and talented and I think committed staff, they understand that that's the goal of our business, is to struggle to that success with our clients. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Now, even within the model of CUSOs, you guys are a bit unusual, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we refer to ourselves. We have since 2018, day one of founding, referred to ourselves as a next gen CUSO, and it's all over our website and our branding and everything. And what we mean by that is, I was very familiar with, as are the other executives in our business. We were very familiar with the concepts of CUSO from our prior days. And I think classically in our industry, when you hear CUSO, you think of a collective of credit union executives sort of playing technology company, right? And I don't know if that's going to offend anybody. I don't really care, but the reality is that when you get a bunch of credit union CEOs together to run a fintech, all manners of sin can ensue, and it's they return value, they return a dividend. I'm sure we've seen it time and time again, and some of them are great and add value and augmentation to our clients. But we really felt that there needed to be a true fintech owned by and situated in the credit union industry, able to rapidly and sovereignly and sometimes bizarrely and weirdly, innovate in the space. And so Nutmeg agreed with that, put the capital behind it, went to bat with their local regulators for it, and were able to allow us to form a CUSO that is not comprised of a bunch of credit union executives playing board, but is really sovereignly steered by the technology and industry executives like Jeff, like myself, others who can, really drive forward innovation and partnership without some of the encumbrances of the legacy CUSO. And so that's what we mean by next gen CUSO. I think we're really situated in a moment where the credit unions need strategy and solutions. So that's the CUSO idea. But they also need to be unencumbered by their own traditionalist ideas. There needs to be some crazy talk going on that's spurring innovation that can benefit the industry.
Well, that's interesting because you made me think of this concept that is so prolific, the best practices in the industry. And it often seems to me that best practices has become kind of just the common option, the common choice, the checkbox of platforms or channels. And especially in technology, do you see it that way, or is there another way to think of best practices that is more innovative and more progressive?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble, Matt.
We can edit this.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if I want you to edit it. I just know that this answer is going to get me in trouble. I think there's been two dynamics that have really driven best practices in our industry. One, I mentioned earlier that the core providers of yesteryear were, woefully, neglectful of keeping up with the innovations in data and technology and digital services for about 20 years, right? And that led to what we call the platform predisposed era. There are other perils in our industry, like regulators, right? And like volunteer boards, like the accepted dogma of our industry that says thou shalt not choose anybody other than this orange vendor or this blue vendor or whatever. So I think those are also powerful dynamics that drive best practices. One of my mentors and my former business partner used to say, there are definitely vendors out there where no CEO has ever been fired for choosing that vendor, right? And I think those become normative decision drivers. So I think that, we have to be aware of the fact that a lot of business decisions that masquerade as strategy are really just reactions to regulations, or more accurately, probably reactions to interpretations of regulations, or reactions to regulations under this pretense that, the regulators dictate what we do with our business as financial institutions. And that's not true. They regulate what we do with our business. And see, the former creates a best practice where we react to whatever they write. And I think that's primarily what the state our industry is in. The latter, that they regulate what we do with our business, would imply that from time to time we take bold risks with capital, with technology, with community assets, and then they rein that back. And I don't think that's the norm right now. I don't think the norm is us acting on the behalf and the interest of our communities and then being regulated back. I think the best practice in our industry is interpreting the rules and letting that dictate what we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in fact, I think maybe you're hinting at this too, that we can be so cowed by our expectations of those regulations that we even restrict ourselves, our own vision and innovation. We even hold ourselves back. I guess that's another, I think that's
sure. I mean, you can, again, going back to just our obsession with core technology, for example, you could probably put 10 of the most talented core developers in our industry in a room right now and ask them what they're developing. And I'd be willing to put a significant amount of, whatever, let's call it the best bourbon in the world on the table. And I bet you more than 50% of their lists are regulatory, what are perceived to be regulatory requirements submitted to them by their client base. Okay, so that's a game of telephone already. Regulator says X, 100 plus clients interpret it as Y, developer starts working on Z, right? That's how, I mean, and then those become actual toggles and switches in our technology that we're allowed to choose to drive our business. And then you just did the symbol that's correct. You know, you get this confirmation loop, this devastating loop, and there's never any expansion. There's only like implosion. And, you know, and then we call that best practices. It's worked for a while. It's certain, I mean, but I don't know if the circumstances that we're in right now can tolerate it. And I'm venturing and risking to say this because I think we all have to be realists in the moment and we have to look at the probability that we're going to see considerable regulation coming down the pike as the true impact of the COVID economic crisis is understood, right? And we're all going to have to make decisions about how we react to that. Right. Do we drive to meet our consumers and our communities where they need us? And then converse with our regulators intelligently about data, use of data, control of data as a benefit to the community? Or do we wait for the next piece of legislation to come out and then all submit our development requests to our cores and outsource our, you know, best practice to our core vendor, right? So